Hey everyone, and welcome back to AK Academy and the AK Expenses Tracker course. So the last section we were talking about is developing a way to upload attachment into the system. We have implemented the first part of it, which is storing the uploaded attachments into our cosmosdb. Right now we need to move to the second part, which is actually writing the service that's going to talk to the Azure Blob Storage and store the file in there. Before we're doing so, let's just a little reminder. Actually, the Azure Storage Explorer started to have some problems by using the Azure Storage Emulator locally. So they decided that we need to move to Azurite because Azure Storage Emulator locally has been deprecated, and right now we need to use the service. So basically, it's very easy to install. All you have to do is make sure that you have Node installed on your machine, and the way to confirm that, I'll put this link in the description box, so in case if you don't have it, just click on your own, whether you are following on Mac or Windows, just pick your own installation, and then after it's installed successfully, just run the command npm, which is Node Package Manager, and make sure it is installed. Once it is installed, just make sure to run the command npm install -g, which is a global, and then type Azurite and then hit enter. Have it installed. You're just going to wait for a minute and it will be there. Of course, also this command will be in the description box. Once you have that link, right now it becomes like this one gives you more power and flexibility, and it's a modern implementation to the Azure Storage Emulator, and of course it's open source, which is a good thing. So right now all you have to do is just call the command Azurite, and here we go. They run, and whenever you want to finish, just hit Ctrl+C and you're going to leave this. So this is just a simple reminder that I highly recommend to do those, so you are not using any deprecated services. I have noticed that actually at the beginning of the course, but I've been using Azure Storage Emulator and it was fine, but right now sometimes it's making some problems using the local emulator in here. So I have the emulator here, we have the blob container, so we need to create a new one and start storing the attachments in here. But before we do so, we're not going to do this through the UI. Of course, we're going to do that through the code. So let's go to Visual Studio, go to our project, which is the functions project, and I'm going to create a new folder using the new file extension, of course. Call it services, then iStorage service.cs. So here we go. Right now we have the service. If you are planning to use it in another project, you can put it in your own, or you can have it in here if you want to copy the code or have it as a separated CS project. It's just up to you, basically. So we're going to put it in here in the services of the Azure functions of this one, and then we have iStorage service, and this is the great architecture of having this attachment. So all of the attachments of the system will be in one place, so you don't need to have this service being used in many other places. Let's remove those useless using service. Before that, let's keep them for now, zoom in a little bit, and let's try it in our service. It will be iStorage service, so it's overall, it's not blob, not Azure specifically. This is the interface. So here, task string, it will retrieve the URL, of course, SaveFileAsync, and the save the file, it will take a stream, which is a stream of bytes that will be read from the uploaded file, and give it the file name. The other service that we need, or the other function that we need, is the delete file async, basically just like that, and string file path. Here we will pass only the file name because we are going to generate a new file name, and the path will be stored on the Azure Storage Emulator, will be a URL. The file async, we will just take the file path and we will remove it from the container. So let's add some comments in here. Save a file to a storage source and return its full URL. Like this, the stream of the file, delete a file by using its full path. Great, so right now we have the interface. Let's go ahead and write the implementation for this and to store that on the Azure Blob Storage. So I will start by typing Azure Blob Storage Service, like that. Inherit. Great. So right now we have this. I'm going to implement the interface just like that. Great. So right now we need to use the Azure Blob SDK to basically communicate with our storage account. For now it will be locally. When we migrate to the code online to Azure, everything will stay the same. Nothing going to be changed in the code, just the connection string from the app settings. So What we need this service to take is the connection string of the storage account. So let's receive the connection string. Let's make it read only because we don't need it to change. Okay, let's create a constructor for this. There we go. Great. So let's move right now to Azure a little bit, or the Azure storage. The first thing that the storage account consists of, or the first big thing in the service, is the Azure storage account. Under the Azure storage account, we have a set of services like a blob, queue, tables, or file share. We are interested in blob, so we have the storage account in full, then we have the blob, then we have the blob container, the blob service. Inside the blob service, we will have the container. I'm just going to create a blob for example, test, enter. So as you can see, storage account, blob containers. Inside the blob containers, we have a blob container, single one, and within it we have blobs. So if you upload something, the thing in here is the blob. So this is the same hierarchy that you are going to use while using the SDK. So first you are going to create a storage account client, then a blob containers client, then blob container client, then a blob, and upload. So that's a little bit tricky, but it's easy, and like it's going to be kind of repeatable code. So the first thing we need to do is to bring the container that we want to deal with. So, oh wow, look at that. Azure GitHub CoPilot written all the code for us without doing anything. So I can basically click tab. Of course, GitHub CoPilot I'm going to make a video about that, explaining it exactly what it is, how you can set it up, and is it recommended or not. But from the name of the service and from the name of the functions, he was genius enough to know what you're gonna do, because always the first thing is to click the container. So I will first add the assemblies that's needed. Okay, using Microsoft.Windows Azure.Storage.Blob. There we go. And in here, cloud storage account. Okay, just .storage, we just need those two namespaces. So let's explain this code very quick. The first thing is to create a storage account, cloud storage account. This is the service that's going to deal with the full storage account, either queues or blob or tables, whatever. And the starting point will be from the connection string. There is a function called Paras, and give it a connection string, it gives you a cloud storage account instance that communicates with that storage account. Now, from that storage account, we need to bring the container as a client. So what we do is we type blob client, storage account.create blob client. So this cloud blob client class is responsible in dealing everything related to the containers. Create containers, delete containers, add a blob inside a container, and so on and so forth. So basically, this is from its name, it retrieves instance of cloud blob client. And from this one, we need to retrieve a reference to a container. So either this container exists or it's not exist, but we need to have a reference, like we are going to deal with a container called X, or attachments, or documents, and then we can apply the functions against this. So by default, the smartness of GitHub CoPilot actually attachments, I called it attachment by itself. We're going to keep the same name. So right now we have a function inside the blob client called getContainerReference called attachment. So right now we have an instance of type cloud blob container. So right now we are dealing only with one single container. So let me remove this to not have it. Okay, great. So right now this is the class or the object that allows us to do anything related to the container. So the first function that by default it calls called create if not exists async. This function is being run against that container that's called attachment. If it's not exist, so create it, and at the end return it. So right now we have a simple and neat function that actually we can use in the save and delete. So let's start with the save first. I will add, the first thing is var container equals await get container async. Of course, don't forget in here to add the async. Visual Studio latest version adding it automatically for you, but if not, don't forget about it. So after the container, the user will upload files. Those files could be called like 1.jpg, 1.png, and so on and so forth. you know, many users call their files like this. So we need to have a unique file name that's existing from like one dot or one dash long GUID and then .jpg, just like that. So to do that, we need to basically construct a new name, and before doing that, we need to check first the extension. And to deal with this, we have first let's retrieve and validate the extension. var extension. Okay, GitHub CoPilot is doing a lot of stuff. Extension file name. So this one, if you give it like .png, it will just give you .png. So this is how it's going to work. And of course, I'm going to run .to lower at the end. So for the comparison, it doesn't make it hard for us. Then right now I'm going to create, here we go, GitHub CoPilot again. We need to create an array that contains all the files that we actually need. We need only PNG, JPG, JPEG, or GIF. Some people call it JPEG, but anyway. So we need just to create an array of them, and right now we just need to check. How if this extension is a valid one or no. So I'm going to type if valid extensions that contains the extension. So if it doesn't contain, as you can see in here, if it doesn't contain, let's throw an exception called not supported exception, and then we'll type a message in here, the extension, even it writes extension is not supported. So I highly recommend you to go to GitHub CoPilot because it makes your code very easy. Or before doing that, I'll make a video to explain the pros and cons of it. So we have checked that the extension is fine. Right now we just need to generate a new name. So we have took the extension here. The second thing we want to do is take the name only. So generate a new unique name. So var name only equals path dot get file name without extension. File name. So in here, if we give it like that, it will give us only this. You see how smart this guy is? So I like it as my assistant. This one, it will give us this one. So right now we have the only name, we have here the extension, so we can generate a new name. So I'll call it var and new name, or let's call it new file name, equals name only. It exactly did what we want to do. GUID.new, then the extension, like that. Here we go. So the name will be something just like this. As you can see, this is how it looks like, which is what we need. So this one is very unique. Of course, this is not a GUID, but you know what I mean. Nice. So the last thing I want to do is to upload the file actually, and to do that, so blob equals, so right now from the container we need to, the same way here we create a reference for a container, right now we need to create a reference for a blob. This blob, it could be exist, it could be not. If it's not, so we want to upload it, or maybe we want to delete it if it exists, or make some edits. So the same way, we need to get reference first. So, and this reference doesn't mean we didn't do any operations. We just like behind the scenes, this SDK just preparing the right URL, because you know the Azure storage account at the end of the day is just an API that you communicate with it. So container.get the blob reference, and this blob will be called the new file name. And then we need to upload that file. Wait, blob.upload. Okay, save. Oh wow, what was called? Okay, we have a upload, but I cannot find it for some reason. Okay, that's cool. Wait. Blob.upload from stream async. Yeah, this is the name of the class. Doesn't contain a definition and not accessible method. Okay. Cool. So it looks like we are using the wrong API or the wrong SDK of the blob storage. So let me go to NuGet package, and then in here search for blob. Azure.Storage.Blobs. Yeah, I think this is the right service, and we were using the wrong one. Okay, accept. There we go. So in here, let's using Azure.Storage.Blobs. Okay, so here right now we need to make some changes. Blob service client, and here we pass the connection string to bring the container. Okay, it looks like we have a lot of changes that we want to do. Sorry, that was my mistake, because this is the worst thing about the Azure SDK, that they always make those kind of changes that break some things, but it's okay. We are not going to change too much. So the concept is the same. Container equals storage account get. Sorry, not storage account. Let's rename this to blob client. Get container blob container client. That container called attachments. So the same thing, but some changes. Blob container client. This one be called blob container client, just like this. The function is going to stay the same. Everything here is going to stay the same. Only here get blob client. So just some function change names, but yeah, we should always keep using this. Sorry for the mess that happened at the end. We are going to make a quick recap. So yeah, get blob client. So right now, I'm going to call the function upload async. We are going to give it a stream, and here we go. It has been uploaded. The last thing to do is to return the blob.uri. This is the full uri.absolute. Okay, great. So let's make a quick recap for what we have done. So basically, before that, Azure Functions project already have reference to the library Azure Storage, the one that we are using. The new one that's released by Microsoft is the Azure.Storage.Blobs, and it just have a slightly different way to treat. So basically, this service is not dealing with the same hierarchy. It starts directly by creating a blob service client, only blob service client to deal with anything here, containers, and the same concept. The second step is to create add a reference for a specific container, either exists or not. Then we call the create if not exist, and we return this instance. Basically the same operations here and there, but I'm not sure why the upload was missing in the old SDK. In the save, the first thing that we do is we check if the container, we fetch the container, or it's by default creating it if it's not there. Then we fetch the extension of the file that's passed in here. Then we check, we add a set of valid extensions. Of course, you can add as many as you want. Then we make sure that the extension uploaded of the file uploaded by the user is actually valid and is existing in this list of extensions. Then we create a new name by removing the extension from the name using path.get file name without extension. Of course, path is existing on the system.io for all .NET projects, kind of projects. Then the new file name is the name only associated with the new GUID, and then the extension is added at the end. Last thing is to bring a reference to a blob inside the container. Blob is, you can say it's file, so it's basically a block of binary, and we call the upload async function, and then we return the absolute URI of this file. So this is everything for the SaveFileAsync. In the next video, we are going to implement the delete function, and then we are going to create a simple function to test that. After that, we can move, we move to use computer vision API to validate the content of the image. We just need to make a slightly change in this method, or not change, but a little bit of addition. But we are going to explain what it is in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Of course, this class, like, if you are new to Azure, it's not difficult, and it is the same. You can use it every time, the same thing. So it's basically one of the references classes and logic that doesn't need kind of smartness. It just need to have it and to understand what it does, so you can manipulate it in case you need. And yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this one, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.